By the time of Fallout New Vegas, the NCR had expanded from its origins in California and was working to rebuild civilization across the wasteland. They had established a functional government with a structured military and a strong bureaucratic political system. From the events of Fallout New Vegas, we see that the NCR is one of the most powerful post-war factions, striving to bring democracy, stability, and peace to all that join the nation. Their emphasis on being considered the good guys, if there is such a thing, had made them a fan favourite within the Fallout universe. However, as we see from the show, the NCR has fallen on hard times. Its capital, Shady Sands, was destroyed by an atomic strike shortly after the events of Fallout New Vegas. They evidently were unsuccessful in the Mojave campaign, given the post-game and post-TV status of the region. And at least in the Los Angeles area, where once it had a thriving population, it has been reduced to isolated pockets of resistance groups. However, while we see that the NCR is not as it once was, it would be incorrect to say that it has completely ended. In an interview, Todd Howard was questioned on this, with the full exchange consisting of: "I'm curious how you guys see the NCR as it stands now. Is it demolished, or is it kind of more like the Minutemen, where it's just fractured? One of the takes that we always have is to approach things very locally when we're doing Fallout. We're careful about saying what's going on in other parts of the world, and we always take this view of communication is difficult. And look, if you look at the background, the NCR is a wide-ranging sort of organisation and group across not just California but other places. So the show focuses on this period of time in this group here, and that's what we can say right now. But I don't think you've heard the last of the NCR. As such, we can see that the NCR still stands, just not as tall as it once did. And this is seen in the core regions of the show. We see in the show itself that although the NCR as we knew it has fallen, its people have not. Moldova leads a contingent of troops from the Griffith Observatory, labelled as the NCR headquarters of the region, that operates as its own functional branch of the faction. Its famed and powerful military is still seen to operate within this headquarters. Armed to the teeth, these men and women still seek to fight for the new California Republic, as seemingly the last branch of it located within the core California region. Civilians, including ghouls, live within its walls, conducting agricultural pursuits, while Moldova sought to harness the power of cold fusion within its walls. Adam, who from his helmet and the ghouls' comment about having atoms let in him, appears to have once been an NCR ranger. However, all he wishes now is to protect his family. However, his two sons, Tommy and Rufus, appear to still wish to uphold the Republic's mission, as it was they who commissioned safe transit for Wilzig to reach Moldova. Although no longer technically referring to themselves as citizens of the NCR, many of the newer Vault dwellers of Vault 4 are former citizens and still commemorate it. In the aftermath of the destruction of Shady Sands, its residents were permitted into the open and inclusive Vault 4, and although being part of the Vault now, they still think of themselves as keeping the spirit of the NCR alive. Regular history lessons are held in classrooms for children to learn the same crucial history of the NCR, from its presidents to the date of its formation, as Republic children once would have, as of old. It's also from this that we observe the date that Shady Sands was destroyed, with Todd Howard confirming that this occurred shortly after the events of Fallout New Vegas. However, these NCR Vault dwellers have also become slightly tribal, for lack of a better word, in their veneration of their nation. Regular services are held in the Vault that the regular residents of the Vault consider to be a bit too rambunctious, as they tend to mirror a religious ritual. An altar is laid, with artifacts of the NCR scattered across it, including portraits of the NCR's former president, Aaron Kimball. The worshippers remove their clothing, covering themselves in blood and ash to represent the citizens lost to the bomb. Interestingly, they appear to worship the NCR commander Moldova as the Flame Mother, besieging her to bring them to salvation and reclaim their nation. And it's an interesting point that she nearly did. Moldova sought to harness the energy of cold fusion to bring power back to the ruins of Los Angeles and the wider region, and came very, very close to. It was only the intervention of the Brotherhood of Steel, who reignited the long-term grudge of war between the NCR, that stopped this from happening. The Brotherhood assaulted the observatory, with NCR soldiers flying the nation's flag in the battle, as they did of old. Although as Cass once did state, that flag does not make them bulletproof. The observatory fell to the onslaught of the power-armoured foes, and the LA contingent of the NCR were eliminated. The thing is that if Moldova had succeeded, the NCR would likely be back in action, laying claim to the region once more and providing its people a new standard of living that would allow them to flock to their banners. This entails the NCR forces we see in show, but as stated by Todd Howard, the show focuses only on the regions featured. But the NCR is a wide-ranging organisation, spread over not just California, but other locations as well, and that we had not heard the last of the NCR. Now, a fairly common complaint with the show is how the NCR was handled, which I'm not going to stand on a pedestal and say that some of it isn't granted. I was personally shocked to see the direction that the NCR had gone, and I was a little bit sad about how one of my favourite factions ended up. But it's also fairly understandable as to why other NCR forces aren't seen within the LA region. At the time of New Vegas, in 2281, the NCR is already mentioned to be in a somewhat declining state. Lakes, dams and aquifers are said to have been emptied. Forecasted projections from the Office of Science and Industry state that large-scale food scarcity may become evident, and the nation is already overextended in multiple fronts. The fall of Shady Sands is stated by Todd Howard to occur immediately after New Vegas, with the NCR losing its capital to an atomic bomb. Given that this would likely coincide with their loss at Hoover Dam, given the fact that a Mr. House ending is the most probable, the nation would be in fairly dire straits. Legate Linnaeus can be talked down from invading California by being convinced that conquering land as far-reaching as it would eventually destroy the Legion. He declares that the West is a trap that the bear is already caught in, and it's dying. Ulysses, in his bid to destroy the NCR, launches nukes at the trade routes along the Long 15 into the Mojave and beyond. He states that given the NCR's reliance on trade and commerce to survive, he does not need to destroy them outright. Instead, he simply needs to cut the throat of the bear and watch it bleed out. Given this, it's understandable that the NCR may be in shambles after losing in New Vegas and having their capital city nuked. However, it doesn't mean that they aren't still around. Looking at this map of the NCR territories in the year of 2281, the faction has been able to lay claim to a huge portion of the pre-war United States. I will acknowledge that the show plays somewhat fast and loose with geography, given that Shady Sands was always considered to be quite far from Los Angeles, which is known as the Boneyard in the Fallout universe. However, the show seems to have amalgamated them into basically walking distance from each other. However, the remaining territory they possess would be enough to consolidate their forces and continue the nation in some form. The NCR was comprised of 5 states, of Shady, Los Angeles, Maxon, Hub, and Dayglow. Again, the state of Shady and Los Angeles is a little unclear since LA and Shady Sands were sort of meshed into one, but even this would mean that there are still 3 other NCR states still in existence. Their vital trade routes would still be in operation, and their citizens, numbering previously in the millions, would likely still be intact enough to work and live towards a better future. The region that we see in the Fallout TV show was destroyed by an atomic bomb. The land is barely arable, and so the core of the NCR likely just pulled out of the region entirely. The only remnants were the NCR Vault Dwellers and Moldaver's forces, who were somewhat diehard in their mission to make an omelette out of the broken egg that was Shady Sands. The region gets a lot of focus because, of course, it's where the show's set, but no great power, be it the NCR, Brotherhood of Steel, or Enclave, actually makes any claim on the territories we see for this reason. As up until the cold fusion technology was discovered, there was nothing left to lay claim to. Ultimately, the NCR as we know it has fallen. The great titanic power that could afford to lose 1,000 soldiers every year in the distant Mojave campaign, while simultaneously pushing its nation's borders out in all directions, is likely no longer a great 2-headed grizzly bear, but instead a tiny cub. But a bear cub can still be dangerous when roused, and it will one day grow. If the NCR Vault Dwellers and Moldaver's forces are able to keep the spirit of the NCR alive in the heartland of a deserted, nuked wasteland where all hope should have gone, then its citizens out in the other states would no doubt be able to shoulder this burden. As stated by President Aaron Kimball, they are the great western light of California, torchbearers in the darkness, living reminders of all that is best in our republic. However, this is all somewhat speculation until we do receive the next season of the Fallout TV series, which will outright canonize one of the endings of Fallout New Vegas. And given the fact that the showrunners have stated that the protagonists, Lucy, Maximus, and the Ghoul, are headed into new regions outside of California, and the NCR is most likely to exist outside of California. Plus, Todd's comments that we hadn't seen the last of the NCR. I think you can bet a few bottle caps that they'll be making an appearance again. But what do you think? I'd love to hear your comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you for another video.